Welcome to the deep dive. Look, if you've spent any time in crypto, maybe the last 5 years or so, you know that decentralized finance or DeFi,
Yeah.
it's often
Right.
just a minefield, right? So
Yeah.
much complexity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just built on jargon,
Yeah,
multi-step processes,
yeah,
but sometimes it feels like it's almost deliberately designed to keep new people out.
exactly. And, that operational inefficiency you mentioned, that's precisely why we're seeing protocols like VyFinance pop up.
Right. They're building on Cardano, and they're really aiming to leverage its unique architecture, trying to solve uh, those recurring user experience issues, the risk management problems that have frankly plagued DeFi since, what, 2019?
Yeah, pretty much since the beginning. Okay, so let's unpack this.
Mhm.
We've got some pretty dense sources today. We're looking at transcripts from recent town halls, really in-depth technical documentation on their tokenomics,
Hmm.
and also detailed tutorials on how their DeQ actually functions.
Right, so quite a bit to get through.
Yeah, so our mission here is to filter all this down, explain how VyFinance is trying to build what they're calling a better DEX. And the core idea seems to be simplifying how you engage with it and offering some, well, genuinely novel portfolio tools, it seems.
That's the pitch. And VyFinance, it's important to understand, it isn't just a simple decentralized exchange. It's really positioned as a comprehensive ecosystem, like a whole suite of products built natively for Cardano.
Okay.
So at its core, yeah, there's the DEX for trading, but around that, you've got the BIR, that's their redistributive thing. You've got governance features coming, a lottery, and these integrated token and NFT vaults, too.
Right, quite a lot going on. And the,
Hmm.
the thing tying it all together is the VYFI token, their Cardano native token.
Exactly, the VYFI token, or CNT. It provides all that core utility across the whole platform. So determining governance votes, funding the lottery mechanism, things like that. And the whole premise, like you said, it really hinges entirely on Cardano's capabilities. That's right. The team, apparently, they bring a background from traditional finance, bonds trading, financial advisory,
Mm-hmm.
and they looked at DeFi
Mm-hmm.
and saw, okay, this is innovative, but it just lacks those user-friendly tools for, say, professional traders or portfolio managers.
Right, the tools aren't quite there yet.
Yeah. So they saw an opportunity to use Cardano's fundamentally different approach
Yeah.
to blockchain architecture to try and deliver, superior tools.
Okay, makes sense. So let's start right at the foundation then. The DX itself. We know, okay, a DDEX is a smart contract, lets people trade peer to contract, no central authority needed. But here's the crucial question, maybe for our more informed listeners. How does building a DDEX on Cardano's UTXO model?
Yeah.
How does that fundamentally change things, like the requirements for liquidity, transaction logic, compared to, say, an Ethereum DEX?
Yeah, that is the essential starting point. Because on an account-based model like Ethereum, the assets are essentially held by the smart contract itself.
Right.
But on Cardano, with the extended UTXO model, or UTXO, assets are always tracked within specific outputs, basically sitting in a user's wallet.
Okay.
So this means the smart contract doesn't really hold the assets in the same way. It just defines the conditions, the rules under which those assets can be spent or moved.
Ah, I see. So the location of the assets is different, and that dictates how liquidity has to be treated.
Exactly. Liquidity still needs to come from users, right?
Mm.
People willing to lock their tokens, say ADA and VYFI, into those smart contract outputs.
Mm-hmm.
And in return for providing that liquidity, users get an LP token, a liquidity provider token, plus rewards. It's your standard liquidity mining. The LP token just represents your share, your fractional ownership of that pool.
Gotcha. Okay, so when we talk trading then, the big technical challenge that always comes up is slippage. Especially if you're doing larger trades, slippage can just eat away at your profits. How does VyFinance give users control over this?
Right, slippage. It's just that difference, isn't it, between the price you expect when you hit submit and the price you actually get when the trade settles on the blockchain.
Yeah.
So you try to buy a 2.0 ADA, but maybe it fills at 2.1 ADA. That 0.1 difference, that's your slippage. VyFinance, they immediately show you the minimum number of tokens you're guaranteed to receive based on whatever slippage tolerance you've set.
Okay, so it gives you that floor. Where can users actually manage this setting? Is it easy to find?
Yeah, it's pretty visible. In the DS tab, there's a settings icon, like a little cogwheel. You click that, and users can pick presets, 0.1%, 0.5%, or 0.0%, standard stuff.
Oh, okay.
But they also let you set a custom amount. And here's something that, really jumped out at me from the docs. Users can apparently set custom slippage tolerance up to 59%.
Whoa, hang on. 59%, that
Yeah.
sounds huge. Like, in what scenario would a power user, or anyone really, want to accept almost a 60% price difference on a trade? Doesn't that kind of defeat the whole point?
It does sound alarming, yeah. But I think it speaks to the realities of the UTXO model, especially during times of really high network congestion.
Ah, okay.
So the documentation includes that crucial warning, right? Increasing slippage means you are accepting a potentially much worse price. But allowing a massive tolerance like that, it basically ensures the trade has the best possible chance of actually executing at all when the network is strained or things are super volatile.
I see.
The state of the pool might change dramatically between when you submit and when it finally settles. So it's sort of a guarantee of execution measure, maybe, even if the final price isn't pretty.
A necessary evil, perhaps, just to make sure your transaction actually completes when the market's going crazy. Okay, I get that. Now, let's quickly run through the basic user flows they offer. Trading, canceling an order, providing liquidity. How simple have they made it?
Yeah, they seem to have streamlined it quite a bit. For just trading, you go to the DAX tab, pick your tokens, put in the amount, hit confirm, sign the transaction, type your betting password. Pretty clean sequence.
Okay. And what if, say, that slippage is set too tight, or the transaction just gets stuck processing? How easy is it to pull back an order?
Good question. If a transaction is marked on order, meaning it's waiting, or maybe it's outside the slippage you set,
Hmm.
there's apparently an orange icon that pops up in your recent transactions list.
Right.
The user just selects that transaction, chooses the cancel option,
Hmm.
signs again,
Hmm.
and that's it. It's designed to be a quick out, a non-technical lifeline if an order stalls or fails.
Okay, good. And adding or removing liquidity, does that follow the same simple pattern?
Seems like it, yeah. In the DX tab, again, you'd select add liquidity, pick the pair of tokens, confirm how much, sign password, done.
And taking it out.
It's just straightforward, apparently.
Hmm.
You find the pair listed under your liquidity, select how much you want to withdraw, confirm, sign, password. The operational simplicity really does seem to be a major focus for them.
Okay, so we've covered the baseline mechanics. Important stuff, but maybe things you'd see on other platforms too. But this feels like the point where VyFinance really starts to differentiate itself, especially using Cardano's architecture. We need to talk about this stakeless LP farming. That sounds like the big one.
Oh, it really is the game changer. And
Yeah.
we actually have to link it back to that EUTXO model we mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
Because, on virtually every other major DeFi chain, Ethereum, Solana, Polygon, you name it, the traditional way you do yield farming is just, well, it's an operational headache and it costs you money.
Right, remind us of that old painful process again. How does it usually work?
Okay, so first you got to get your two tokens together, right? Then you deposit them into the liquidity pool. That's transaction one, fee one. You get back an LP token.
Hmm.
Then you have to take that LP token you just received and do a third transaction to stake it into a separate farm contract. That's transaction two, fee two, sometimes even a third transaction depending on approval.
Right, it's multiple steps, multiple fees, and honestly, it's conceptually confusing for a lot of users, especially newer ones. Paying gas 3 or 4 times just to start earning yield.
Precisely. It's expensive and clunky.
Hmm.
But Cardano's EUTXO model, the same thing that lets your staked ADA stay in your wallet and still earn rewards.
Yeah.
VyFinance basically applied that exact same principle to LP tokens. They created stakeless LP farming. So once you provide liquidity and you get that LP token back in your wallet, that's it. It is automatically farming. It's a single transaction process.
Hold on, I want to pause on the technical side of that for a second. Why can an LP token on Cardano earn rewards just sitting in my wallet when on Ethereum I have to lock it up in some separate vault contract? What's the difference?
Yeah, it really goes back to how the system manages state or information. On Ethereum, the farming contract needs to know who owns the claim to the rewards, right?
Right.
So the asset itself, the LP token, has to be transferred into that contract's custody. That transfer updates the contract's internal state, telling it, okay, this person now deserves rewards.
Okay, so the contract holds the token.
Yeah. But on Cardano with EUTXO, that LP token is tied to an output, a specific piece of data in your wallet. The smart contract, or rather the farming mechanism script, doesn't need custody. It simply checks the transaction metadata or maybe the status of that specific UTXO in your wallet to confirm, yep, this person holds the required LP token.
Ah, I see.
And based on that check, it assigns the rewards. The actual asset, the LP token, never needs to leave your wallet's control.
That is the crucial distinction then. It's less a conceptual leap and more an architectural advantage they're leveraging.
Exactly. And the results, well, they're pretty undeniable. The user flow gets radically simplified. You go from maybe 3 or 4 separate transactions down to just one.
Hmm.
That saves time, it saves money on transaction fees, and honestly, it drastically lowers the barrier to entry for just understanding how yield farming works.
And the efficiency boost doesn't stop just at adding liquidity, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about the single harvest mechanism. That sounds like it could save active users a ton on transaction costs.
Well, it's a major improvement, yeah. Imagine you're diversified, right? Maybe you're providing liquidity to, I don't know, 25 or 30 different project pairs on the platform.
Okay.
On most chains, collecting your rewards would mean 25 or 30 separate claim transactions, each costing a fee.
Yeah, that adds up fast.
Totally. VyFinance apparently aggregates all those pending rewards, even if they're a mix of different tokens from different farms, into a single harvest transaction.
So I pay one transaction fee and I get all 30 different reward tokens deposited into my wallet. Wow, that's efficient.
It really is. It's an immediate, tangible saving in both money and time for the user. Now, we should probably look at the reward cycle itself, too. They've designed it for predictability.
Okay, yeah. Tell us how that 24-hour cycle works. How do you go from seeing estimated rewards to actually being able to collect them?
Right. So for the first 24 hours after you provide liquidity, you'll see estimated daily rewards. That's like the theoretical maximum you could earn. After one full reward cycle, so after 24 hours, those estimated rewards move into a pending rewards bucket. And here's the key part, sort of a safety and consistency measure. Those pending funds only move to available rewards, meaning ready for you to harvest after the next complete reward cycle finishes.
So there's a delay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So your very first harvest can only happen a minimum of 48 hours after you first provide liquidity. You need 2 full cycles to complete.
And I bet that minimum wait time ties into their anti-whale mechanism somehow.
Absolutely. The whole system seems designed to encourage genuine, long-term liquidity provision, not just quick flips. If a large holder, a whale, tries to move their LP tokens to a different wallet, maybe trying to game the system, jump between pools quickly to grab disproportionate rewards, they automatically forfeit any rewards currently sitting in that pending state. So it makes that kind of short-term mercenary farming economically unattractive. It disincentivizes just jumping in and out constantly.
Okay, that makes sense. So this whole stakeless farming model, it leads to what the documentation calls the unlocked asset value of the LP token. Why is that LP token just sitting there in your wallet fundamentally more valuable or useful than one that's staked and locked up somewhere else?
Great question. It's because it remains perpetually liquid and, crucially, composable.
Composable, meaning?
Meaning it can be used as a building block in other financial applications or strategies.
Yeah.
See, traditionally, when your LP token is staked in a farm contract, its value is locked up. It's committed. You can't do anything else with it.
Right. It's stuck there earning yield.
Yeah. But here, because the LP token, which remember represents real underlying asset value, maybe 50% VyFi and 50% Cardano, is always just sitting in the user's wallet. Its value is unlocked.
Okay.
It becomes a readily available fungible asset that can be plugged into new financial products.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we see them doing with these layer 2 pools.
Okay. Perfect segue. We've established the innovation of stakeless farming, how it simplifies things. Now let's talk about how they use that unlocked LP token to help users manage the big inherent risk of providing liquidity, namely impermanent loss.
Right. Impermanent loss, or IL. It's the #1 boogeyman for new liquidity providers, isn't it?
Definitely scares people off.
Yeah. It's basically the opportunity cost. It's the difference in value between just holding your 2 assets separately versus providing them as liquidity in a pool. The simplest analogy often used is thinking about currency reserves.
Okay, let's use that Australian dollar AUD versus US dollar USD example you mentioned earlier, but maybe dig into the why. Why does the loss actually happen mechanically?
Okay. Imagine a simple liquidity pool designed to hold, say, 50% AUD value and 50% USD value. Now, let's say the Australian dollar suddenly tanks against the US dollar.
Okay.
Arbitrage traders see this instantly. They think, aha, cheap AUD. They will immediately start depositing their now cheaper AUD into the pool to buy the now relatively more valuable USD out of the pool.
Right, they're rebalancing the pool for profit.
Exactly. The pool's internal ratio shifts dynamically to try and maintain that 50-50 value equilibrium based on the new market prices. So when the original liquidity provider eventually decides to withdraw their funds, the pool now contains significantly more of the lower value currency, the AUD, and less of the higher value currency, the USD, than they started with. That tendency to end up holding more of the asset that went down in price or less of the one that went up, that's impermanent loss.
Okay, so if I provide 15% ADA and 50% VYFI, and VYFI suddenly doubles in price overnight against ADA, I actually end up with more ADA and less VYFI in my pool share than if I had just held both tokens separately in my wallet.
Precisely. You missed out on some of the upside of the token that performed better. However, the documentation does rightly note that providing liquidity does offer a kind of internal hedge.
How so?
Well, think about it. If you held 100% of the volatile asset, say VYFI, and it loses half its value, you lose 50 cents on the dollar, straight up. But if you were in a 50-50 ADA VYFI liquidity pool, the loss in the value of your LP token due to that price drop is actually less, maybe closer to 25 cents on the dollar worth. It mitigates the outright price risk compared to holding 100% of the volatile asset, but you still experience that opportunity cost, the IL, compared to just holding both assets separately.
Okay, I follow. It dampens the blow but doesn't eliminate the relative loss. So this is where their layer 2 liquidity mining, or L2LP, comes into play. They're using that unlocked LP token to somehow shift this risk profile. How does the math work? How do they get from 50-50 to that reported, like, 25-75 ratio?
Yeah, this is where that composability we talked about gets really clever. It's an ingenious use of building blocks. So the layer 1 L1 pool is your standard setup, right? 50% VYFI, 50% ADA, carrying that standard IL risk we just discussed.
Okay, it's standard pool.
Now, for the layer 2 L2 pool, you take your existing L1 LP token, which itself already represents that 50-50 mix of VYFI and ADA, and you provide that to the L2 pool.
Okay, I provide the L1 token.
And then you match the value of that L1 LP token with an equivalent amount of the more stable asset, which is usually ADA in their examples.
Huh. Okay, so walk me through that. If my L1 LP token is currently worth, say, 100 ADA, I put that L1 token into the L2 pool.
Yep.
And then I also add another 100 ADA-K, basically, on top of it.
Exactly right. So let's break down what you've just contributed to the L2 pool. You put in 100 ADA worth of the L1 LP token. Remember that L1 token is internally 50% VYFI and 50% ADA.
Right, so 50 ADA worth of VYFI and 50 ADA worth of actual ADA.
Correct. And then you added another 100 ADA of pure ADA on top.
Okay.
So your total exposure within that L2 pool is now 50 ADA worth of VYFI plus 50 ADA from the L1 token plus the 100 ADA you added directly.
Right.
So 150 ADA worth of ADA.
Ah, okay. So the total value in my share is 50 VYFI value plus 150 ADA value for a total value equivalent to 200 ADA.
Right. And your VYFI exposure is only 50 out of that 200 total value.
Which is 25%.
Exactly. You've effectively shifted your portfolio ratio within that pool to approximately 25% VYFI exposure and 75% ADA exposure.
What?
You've significantly lowered your exposure to the more volatile asset, VYFI in this case, and therefore you've dramatically reduced your potential impermanent loss if VYFI's price moves significantly against ADA.
That's a really direct way for a user to actually customize their risk tolerance for IL. It's like building your own hedge directly into the liquidity provision. Is the ultimate vision to take this even further? Generalize it more?
Seems like it.
Yeah.
They refer to this as the path towards layer N strategies.
Yeah.
The goal appears to be generalizing the system, allowing users to create what they call alpha-neutral strategies.
Alpha-neutral?
Yeah, basically meaning strategies designed to minimize directional market risk. The idea is you could manually construct your own N-layer liquidity pool by mixing various L1 or L2 LP tokens and stable assets to precisely choose where your impermanent loss risk sits. That's moving towards some pretty advanced portfolio management tools built right into the basic liquidity mechanism.
That's fascinating. But what's maybe equally impressive, or perhaps counterintuitive, is that this L2LP system, despite sounding more complex under the hood, actually makes engaging with liquidity provisions simpler for certain types of users, right?
Absolutely. It addresses a huge pain point for newcomers or maybe users who just want less risk. Think about it. If a new user comes along, maybe they only have ADA, but they want to start yield farming with potentially reduced IL risk.
Yeah.
Usually, they'd have to first swap some of their ADA for VYFI, then take both tokens and manually add liquidity to the L1 pool. That's multiple steps.
Right.
With the L2LP setup, they can apparently just buy the L2LP token directly from the day X in a single swap transaction using their ADA.
So they skip the whole process of getting both underlying tokens first.
Exactly. They bypass that manual two-token assembly process entirely. And because of the stakeless LP farming we discussed, the moment that L2LP token lands in their wallet from the swap, they instantly start farming yield. It's a one-step entry into lower IL farming.
That's incredibly smooth. And the exit strategy gets a similar upgrade too, doesn't it? No more multi-step withdrawal.
Yeah, that's another big win for efficiency. On other chains, getting out of a farm often means first unstaking the LP token from the farm contract, transaction 1, then removing the liquidity from the pool, which gives you back the 2 underlying tokens, transaction 2,
Hmm.
and then maybe swapping one or both of those tokens back into the asset you actually want, like ADA, transaction 3, maybe 4. It's a whole ordeal.
Right. Painful.
Here, because you just hold the L2LP token, you can apparently just sell that L2LP token directly back into the DX for ADA in a single sale transaction.
One click, basically, and you're out with your principal plus earnings.
It seems like it. Faster, cheaper, way more efficient exit strategy.
Okay, this is really compelling stuff built on that unlocked LP token idea. Now, you touched on this earlier, and it feels like maybe the most revolutionary potential application of this whole system, using these unlocked interest-bearing LP tokens for lending, specifically this idea of self-repaying collateralization.
Yes. This is the concept that I think should really make everyone sit up and take notice. Because in traditional finance, or even most crypto lending today, collateral is static,
Yeah,
right?
it just sits there. Like if you use your house as collateral for a loan, the house itself doesn't generate income to pay your mortgage interest.
Exactly. But since these VyFinance LP tokens are inherently interest-bearing, remember, they're constantly earning yield from the stakeless farming just by sitting in your wallet.
Right.
They can potentially be used as collateral in lending protocols. They mentioned partnering with someone like LendFi for this.
Okay, so I deposit my farming L2 LP token as collateral for a loan. What are the big advantages this creates, according to the sources?
They highlight 2 distinct major advantages. First, think about the collateral itself. Because it's an LP token representing, say, 25% VYFI and 75% ADA.
Yeah.
Its outright price risk is significantly lower than if you used 100% VYFI as collateral. Its value is primarily tied to ADA, but also dampened by the IL effect. So the collateral itself is much less volatile than using a single, potentially risky asset.
Okay, less volatile collateral. That makes sense for the lender. What's the second more profound advantage? The one for the borrower.
This is the mind bender. The collateral itself, while it's locked up securing your loan, is still earning yield from the underlying farm.
Ah, because of the stakeless farming.
Exactly. The yield generated by that LP token can potentially be automatically routed or used to pay back part or maybe even all of the interest owed on the loan you took out against it.
Wow.
The documentation explicitly describes this as self-repaying collateralization. They frame it as a unique financial tool that isn't really available anywhere else in the crypto space right now.
The implications of that, they're kind of staggering. If your collateral is actively earning income that offsets or even covers the cost of borrowing against it, that fundamentally changes the whole risk equation, doesn't it, for both the lender and the borrower?
It really does.
It almost sounds like you're moving towards zero-cost borrowing or even negative-cost borrowing if the yield on the LP token is higher than the interest rate on the loan.
Potentially, yeah.
If
It creates this new dimension in managing debt, where the performance of your collateral and the duration of your loan become intrinsically linked to the actual cost of that loan. It's a financial innovation that seems born entirely out of the specific liquidity mechanisms and composability that Cardano's architecture enables.
Truly fascinating. Okay, let's shift gears slightly and look at the economics that power this whole ecosystem, the VYFI tokenomics. What does the supply structure look like? Are they building for the long haul here?
Oh, definitely seems like it. A VYFI token has a total supply, or fully diluted value, FTV, of 450 million tokens. But the allocation structure looks clearly designed for long-term endurance, not a quick cash grab.
How so?
Well, a massive chunk, 85%, is locked specifically for funding yield farms over time. Only 8% goes to the Treasury for operations and future development. And critically, a very small portion, just 2.5%, is allocated to the team, and even that is vested over a 4-year period.
Okay, so the incentives seem aligned away from short-term dumping. And the emission schedule, how the tokens actually enter circulation, does that support the long-term view too?
Absolutely. The plan for the initial farming emissions is stretched out over a staggering 21 years.
21 years.
Yeah. And even after that, the remaining supply is set to continue emitting thereafter. So it's this very slow, long burn rate. The idea is clearly to promote engagement and sustainability over decades, rather than having a huge flood of tokens hit the market early on. It directly mitigates that immediate price shock you often see with projects that have a large FDV but rapid emission.
Okay, let's talk about that FDV number, 450 million. That fully diluted value often creates a bit of sticker shock for investors, right? It represents this maximum theoretical market cap that might look massively inflated compared to the current circulating supply and price. How does the VyFinance team address this? How do they reconcile that huge number with their long-term value philosophy?
Yeah, they actually introduced a really elegant concept to explain this, what they call the asymptote analogy.
An asymptote, like from math class.
Exactly. Remember, in mathematics, an asymptote is a line or value that a curve approaches closer and closer, but never actually touches or reaches.
Okay, so the FDV, the 450 million total supply, acts as that asymptote line.
Precisely. The idea is that the price function, when plotted against the circulating supply over time, approaches that FDV ceiling. But because the emissions are stretched out over 21 plus years, it never crashes into it rapidly.
Ah, I see.
By extending the emissions over such a long period, they dramatically minimize the impact of that total supply figure on the token's price at any single point in time. It prevents the large FDV from immediately overwhelming the current token value. Instead, the aim is for slow, steady value accrual and hopefully a consistent rate of return for participants over a very, very long horizon.
That's a clever way to reframe the FDV, not as an immediate threat, but as a distant theoretical limit that you approach very gradually. Okay, now let's talk about the mechanism designed to provide some upward price pressure and distribute income back to VYFI holders, the BAR. What is it and how does it work?
Right, the BRR. It stands for, I believe, buyback auto redistributor or something similar. It's a crucial part of the ecosystem's value flow. Basically, it collects a portion of the fees generated across the entire VyFinance platform, trading fees, maybe earnings from treasury investments in the future, etc.
Okay, clicks fees.
And then, on a regular basis, I think weekly, those collected funds are used to automatically buy VYA tokens directly from the open market.
Ah, creating buy pressure.
Exactly. Constant upward pressure on the price. And then those VYFI tokens that were just bought back, they are distributed as income, as rewards, to users who have staked their own VYFI tokens in the BIR mechanism.
Gotcha. So it's a buyback and distribute system. What's the current fee split on trades that feeds into this? How much goes to LPs versus the BRR?
According to the sources, right now, the standard DAX trade fee is 0.3%. Of that, 0.2% goes directly to the liquidity providers in that specific pool.
Okay.
And the remaining 0.1% goes into the BIR mechanism to fund those weekly buybacks and distributions.
And is that split fixed? Or can it be changed?
That's a really important point they emphasize. That 0.2, 0.1 split is not set in stone. Adjusting that ratio, maybe even more to the BRR or more to LPs, is considered a critical platform parameter. And deciding on any changes would be delegated to future community governance votes.
Okay, community control over the fee structure. Now, we have seen some discussion, maybe chatter online, that the APY earned from staking in the BAR has declined recently. While falling yields are pretty common across all of DeFi in a bear market, do the sources give any specific reasons for why the BAR APY might have dropped?
They do, yeah. They cite two main factors contributing to that. First, ironically, the success and popularity of the BAR itself. As more and more people have staked their VYFI into the BAR to earn yield, that pool of weekly rewards is being split among a larger number of participants. So naturally, the individual APY percentage for each staker goes down, more people sharing the same pie.
Okay, that makes sense. More stakers dilute the rewards. What's the second factor?
The second is overall platform volume. The sources mention that current daily trading volume is significantly lower than it was during previous market peaks. They cite examples of seeing 5 to 6 million ADA in daily volume previously.
Right.
Since the buyer's funding comes directly from that 0.1% cut of trade fees, lower trading volume simply means less capital flowing into the buyer each week for the buyback and redistribution. Less fuel for the engine, basically.
Okay, so it's a combination of its own success, more stakers, and broader market conditions, lower volume. That volume reduction feels very tied to macroeconomic trends like interest rates and general risk appetite. Is the team planning specific strategies to try and drive volume back up now, or is their focus primarily on waiting for that macro tide to turn?
From what we can gather in the town halls and docs, their current strategy seems almost purely focused on building superior products during this downturn.
Okay, heads down, building.
Yeah. They seem to be positioning themselves to capture significant market share once those global factors like interest rates stabilize and capital starts flowing more freely back into the decentralized space. Their core belief appears to be, if they build the best, most efficient, lowest risk DeFi tools on Cardano, the volume will naturally follow when the overall market recovers.
Makes sense. Build it and they will come.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And the next set of major features on their roadmap are all clearly designed to solidify that product leadership position.
Okay, let's talk roadmap then. The primary focus, the next big thing, seems to be this auto harvester. They're calling it an indexed fund for liquidity pool tokens. That sounds ambitious. How is this feature supposed to simplify things even further, maybe especially for less hands-on DeFi users?
Yeah, the auto harvester sounds like it's designed to be the ultimate simplification layer for liquidity provision on Cardano.
Hmm.
Right now, even with stakeless farming, actively managing liquidity across multiple DEXs, multiple tokens, tracking rewards, it's still a job, right? It takes effort.
Definitely.
With the auto harvester, the idea is a user would just deposit a single asset, probably ADA, into one vault. That vault would be based on a specific sector or strategy, like a Cardano DX index, that might target liquidity pools for all the major trading tokens on Cardano DEXs.
Okay, so I just put 80 into an index vault.
That's the concept. And then the system, the auto harvester contract or mechanism, automatically handles all the complexity behind the scenes. It takes your ADA, strategically provides liquidity across multiple relevant pools on VyFinance and potentially partner DEXs, manages the risk, claims the rewards, maybe compounds them, all done automatically on the user's behalf.
Wow. So instead of being my own active liquidity manager, I just become a passive investor in a liquidity index strategy.
Exactly. Set it and forget it, ideally.
Yeah.
The system does the heavy lifting, aggregates the yield from all those underlying positions, and then the goal is to return that generated yield back to the user, probably also in ADA for simplicity.
And getting out. Is that simplified too?
Yeah, the exit strategy is also meant to be dramatically simpler. Instead of manually withdrawing from multiple pools, you would apparently just sell the auto harvester's own liquidity pool token, the token representing your share in that index vault, back to the system. You do that in a single transaction and instantly collect your original principal in ADA, plus all the net earned income.
That sounds conceptual, a bit like protocols we've seen on other chains, like VyFinance vaults on Ethereum. But building that kind of aggregator complexity, especially managing deposits, withdrawals, compounding across multiple pools concurrently, doing that on Cardano's UTXO model must present some enormous technical hurdles, right? Like, what are those specific constraints they have to wrestle with?
Oh, the complexity is profound, yeah. Because of UTXO, transactions are inherently stateful and generally need to be processed sequentially for a given output. You don't have that global contract state like on Ethereum that can easily handle thousands of simultaneous updates from different users interacting with the same vault.
Right, concurrency is the big challenge.
Exactly. Designing an aggregator that needs to manage potentially simultaneous deposits, withdrawals, harvest triggers, rebalancing actions across potentially hundreds or thousands of users, interacting with multiple different liquidity pools, doing all that while maintaining transaction efficiency, avoiding UTXO contention failures, and ensuring determinism, it requires some really novel smart contract engineering on Cardano.
So they can't just copy-paste a design from Ethereum.
In no way. The team explicitly acknowledges this in the town halls. They say they cannot implement it exactly like VyFinance operates. They have to meticulously model all the transaction flows, figure out how to batch operations, how to manage state off-chain or partially off-chain perhaps, all to ensure the best possible user experience and reliability given Cardano's specific architectural constraints. That's why they frame the auto harvester as such a massive, mission-critical technical lift for them. It's breaking new ground on Cardano.
Understood. It's a major engineering challenge. Okay, beyond the auto harvester, let's talk about the future of governance. How will decision-making power shift to the token holders? Is that coming soon?
Yeah, governance is reported to be fairly close to being launched. They're apparently partnering with another Cardano project called Summon to facilitate this.
Okay.
And the core purpose seems clear. Shifting those really monumental platform decisions, things like implementing a token burn mechanism, which the team feels is too significant for them to decide on alone, shifting that power to the community, to the VYFI token holders.
Right, decentralizing the big calls. What specific token burn options have they mentioned might be put up for community consideration?
They've laid out several possibilities that could be debated and eventually voted on. One option is funding burns using fees generated from within the system itself, for example, maybe taking a larger slice of the BRR fees and burning those VYFI tokens instead of distributing them all to stakers.
Okay, burn using internal revenue. What else?
Another idea floated is burning a very small amount of VYFI directly from the unreleased total supply with every single farm harvest transaction that occurs on the platform, like a tiny deflationary tick constantly happening.
Interesting. Continuous small burns.
Yeah. And then the third, perhaps most dramatic option mentioned, is a potential flat, one-time burn of a certain percentage of the total VYFI supply. Just lop off a chunk to reduce the FDV instantly.
Okay, various burn mechanisms on the table for the community to decide, and the voting mechanism itself. How will that work on-chain?
Seems pretty straightforward and direct. All VYFI token holders will be able to vote, and the principle is simple. One token equals one vote.
That makes sense.
And critically, the voting itself is designed to take place entirely on-chain. Apparently, users will submit a transaction containing a specific distinct ballot amount, like sending 0.001 VYFI for yes and 0.002 VYFI for no, recorded in the transaction metadata.
Ah, clever.
Yeah, the system then compares that ballot transaction against a snapshot of the VYFI balance held in the voting wallet at a specific time, allowing it to tally the results securely and transparently on the blockchain.
Okay, on-chain voting is key. Now, beyond these big new features like the harvester and governance, they're clearly also focused on just core efficiency and usability through some major technical and UI upgrades. Let's start with something that might excite the power users. Transaction baskets. What's that about?
Transaction baskets sound like a major win for user efficiency, yeah. The idea is to allow users to bundle multiple different actions, like maybe doing a swap, adding liquidity to 3 different pools, removing liquidity from 2 other pools, and harvesting rewards from all farms, bundling all of that into a single transaction that gets submitted to the blockchain.
Whoa, so instead of like 6 or 7 separate transactions and fees, it's just one?
That seems to be the goal. It could significantly improve capital efficiency, reduce overall fees, and speed up execution for people who are actively managing their DeFi portfolio, doing complex rebalancing or just regular maintenance tasks.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly useful. Now, they also mentioned a really significant backend overhaul, removing the Plutus application backend, or PA, as an interface dependency. For listeners who maybe don't follow the Cardano dev scene super closely, why is getting rid of the PA such a big deal for performance and efficiency?
Right, the PAB. It was an important tool, especially early on in Cardano smart contract development, acting as an interface layer. But it often ended up being a bottleneck,
How so?
because it essentially forced transactions and interactions to route through a kind of centralized server component run by the DApp provider. This could introduce delays, potential single points of failure, and just generally slowed things down, especially under heavy load.
Okay, so it's a choke point.
Yeah, exactly. By removing the PA dependency and building their own transaction construction logic directly, Finance gets rid of that intermediary layer. They gain much more direct control over how transactions are built and submitted. The expected result, according to them, is significantly faster transaction building times, better optimization possibilities, and just a much more robust and efficient system overall, capable of handling the high transaction volumes they anticipate when the market eventually picks up again. They're basically future-proofing their technical foundation.
Gotcha. Shoring up the back-end infrastructure, and all this heavy lifting on the back end is apparently coinciding with a brand new UI as well.
That's the plan, yeah. They mentioned it's being built based heavily on community feedback gathered over time. They actually estimated that once the new back-end optimizations and the new UI are both launched, the entire VyFinance site will feel something like 60 to 70% new compared to how it was at its original launch.
Wow, a major facelift.
Yeah, the goal is clearly to provide a much fresher, sleeker, more modern look and feel that finally matches the advanced technical capabilities they've been building under the hood. They're also making sure to collaborate with partners, like Tap Tools, for example, to ensure better data aggregation and visibility for users. Things like seeing your trade history, your portfolio breakdown more clearly. And they mentioned a partnership with MintSwap for a new MetaVault launch, too.
Okay, lots of improvements across the board. So stepping back, what's their final strategic outlook? Especially considering other players and competitors emerging in the Cardano DeFi space. How do they view the landscape?
Well, they openly acknowledge that building these kinds of advanced decentralized applications on Cardano with its unique UTXO structure is inherently difficult. It presents unique challenges.
Right.
But they also express confidence that their team has the specific experience needed to tackle these hard problems. They often reference the sheer complexity of building the auto-harvester as proof of their capability. And crucially, when it comes to competitors, especially aggregators like DexHunter that route trades across multiple DX, they don't really view them as direct competition in a negative sense. They actually use the term cooperation.
Cooperation. I like that. Cooperative competition. How does having competitors actually benefit the VyFinance ecosystem then?
Because aggregators, by their nature, increase the overall trading throughput and volume across the entire Cardano DEX landscape. They find the best prices, which might route a trade through VyFinance pools.
Ah, I see.
And since the VyFinance BRR mechanism, which rewards VYFI stakers, is directly fueled by the trading volume and fees generated in VyFinance pools, more total volume, regardless of whether the user initiated the trade on the VyFinance website itself or via an aggregator's interface, ultimately benefits the entire VyFinance ecosystem.
Right. More volume equals more fees for the BIR, which equals more rewards for VYFI stakers. Doesn't matter where the trade originated, as long as it uses their liquidity.
Exactly. So more overall activity is good for them. It's a very pragmatic, almost collaborative view of the market. They seem focused on making their pools the most attractive place for liquidity and trades, knowing that aggregators will naturally route volume there if they succeed.
This really has been a genuinely deep dive. We've gone from the basics of UTXO all the way to these advanced layer N strategies and self-repaying loans. It's clear how Cardano's specific architecture is enabling some pretty unique approaches in DeFi.
Absolutely. And if we had to boil it down, I think the three key takeaways are really clear. First, that radical simplification of yield farming through the stakeless LP mechanism that's huge for user experience.
Mhm.
Second, the ability for users to build these more advanced risk-hedged portfolios using Layer 2 liquidity, which directly capitalizes on that unlocked value of the LP token. That's sophisticated risk management.
Right.
And third, the absolutely mission-critical nature of the upcoming auto harvester, which promises to bring indexed passive liquidity management strategies to the masses on Cardano.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Well, hopefully you now have a much deeper, more technical understanding of how at least one major Cardano DeFi protocol, VyFinance, is specifically leveraging the unique features of the EUTXO model. They're using it to simplify concepts that have traditionally been very complex and offering genuinely sophisticated, novel risk management strategies that seem designed to position them for significant adoption, especially when the broader market conditions improve.
And just to leave you with that provocative thought we touched on earlier, the one that really anchors the potential future of borrowing in this ecosystem, just consider again the systemic change implied by self-repaying collateralization.
Right.
If the actual collateral you use to secure a loan, like one of these interest-bearing LP tokens, can generate enough yield on its own to partially or even fully pay back the interest on that loan, what does that ultimately mean for the net cost of borrowing money in the future of finance?
If borrowing can approach zero marginal cost, or even become profitable simply because the underlying collateral is productive and pays for itself, how fundamentally could that single concept disrupt the entire global lending industry as we know it? That's the kind of potentially paradigm-shifting innovation that seems uniquely unlocked by the composability of these novel, yield-bearing assets being built on Cardano. Something to really chew on.